impact of coronavirus pandemic has been so huge. There's been a lot of people that have progressively forgotten about the ongoing destruction of lives and property by Boko Haram and other terrorist groups in the northeast of Nigeria. In the northwest, marauders and cross-border terrorists have been officially christened in Nigeria as bandits and are ratcheting up their game of destruction and death and sacking towns and villages at will, murdering, raping, cattle rustling, and not to forget kidnapping traditional rulers for ransom. This is something akin to the Wild Wild West, which seems to be their new trademark. The Nigerian military is still gamely fighting on, but there are terrorists who now find extra pleasure in launching preemptive strikes against the troops and taking no prisoners at all. Just last week, a lieutenant and 9 soldiers in his unit were killed during an ambush in Borno State. In spite of all of this, the military high command continues to dish out assurances about having the capacity and readiness to win the war. Military affairs analysts are asking, how can this possibly be if morale continues to plunge among the troops, most times as a result of non-payment of salaries and other entitlements? Poor fighting conditions have led to hundreds of soldiers absconding from their duty post, and such acts have a number of times been visited on disproportionate sanctions by the authorities. For instance, the ECOWAS court recently ratified its judgment and ordered the Nigerian military authorities to pay the salaries of 244 soldiers dismissed for alleged desertion. Just how urgent is the need for a reassessment of priorities? Is the war against terror, and the war against terror, I should say. And joining us to discuss this is retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, a national security consultant and policy analyst. We'll also be talking about plans by the federal government to build 10,000 housing units for IDPs, resettlement, and even when the security situation is still considered fluid. Welcome to the program, sir. In the space of 5 years, we've had over...
Hello,
great to have you, sir. In the space of 5 years, we've had well over 40 different strategies and programs being launched to counter insecurity in the north. But it looks as though all of them have failed. It's like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves now. We just keep having these strategies here and there, but nothing is working. I'm sick and tired of having analysts come on TV and say this is what to do, but nothing keeps working because lives are being lost. I'm frustrated. What do you say to this?
Well, thank you very much for having me this morning. First, yes, sadly, we're entering into a decade plus since our counterinsurgency started. Initially, it was only the counterinsurgency. We can see as far back, maybe as recent as 2015. But then 2015 onward, we started having, in addition to the counterinsurgency, we started having issues of farmers' hardest clashes, of bandits, kidnappers, and the rest. So I might slightly disagree with you if you say nothing has worked. Any military operation is a work in progress. You could say, if you take snapshots from 2009, I can say up to now, or 2009 up to now, that we have been fighting the insurgency, for example, you could have snapshots along the way, if you follow, where things seems to be working, and then we have also patches where things need to be working. At the present stage, I agree, we have a lot of setbacks in the operation. However, like I said, when you look at the timeline from 2009, 2010, up to 2015, all figures, in fact, these are figures from reliable, independent sources, because in all honesty, being an analyst, sometimes you have to juxtapose the reports you get from different sources. I will take the reports I get from the military, but also as an analyst, I owe it a duty to also corroborate with other sources. Now, so what I'm telling you is after, interpolating all the sources we have, 2009 or 2015, whether it is in number of attacks, whether it is in number of people killed, the numbers were progressively rising from one year to the other. Until you come to 2015 end, then we started having a decline, very good decline, 2015, 2016, 2017, up to mid-2017, then the numbers started spiking. Spiking 2018, 2019, you look at number of attacks and number of people killed...
We'll just quickly take a break now. We'll come back and talk to you. Please just hold that thought. I apologize for the rude interruption. All right, welcome back, retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu. So you were talking about what kept on progressing as regards the numbers from 2015 to about 2018. The numbers of death, you said. Can you continue that line of thought?
Okay, like I said, any military operation is an ongoing process. So when you talk about whether things are working or not working, you have to look at the whole timeline from when we started. Certainly, there are times when all we're having is negative, negative, negative. This is what I said from 2010 up to 2015. At around the middle of 2015, we started having a downward trend. That is in terms of number of people killed and the number of attacks that Boko Haram has been carrying out successfully against our forces. It started going down up to again towards ending of 2017. Unfortunately, from that ending 2017, we started having a spike again. That is the numbers of attacks by Boko Haram and the people being killed continue rising up to the present day where we are. So the point I am saying is that there were times when our own forces had the upper hand. And then we have also times where we had setbacks with Boko Haram getting the upper hand. What needs to be done also is an honest analysis. Why the decline in our fortune in the war against Boko Haram? It's the same thing also you see when you talk of the bandits attack in the northwest in particular. There were times that you will hear that so many places has been destroyed, but then again, why are the bandits able to move from one point to another? Why are our forces unable to react on time? An analysis, if you look at the bandit attack, for example, an analysis of all the attacks and our reaction, I have studied and I find a reaction time of about 6 to 9 hours on the average. We can see on average 7 hours when a bandit attack is reported, either is it through the police or through the local Angua, and when our forces reach there. In all honesty, you see 9 hours, we should interrogate ourselves. Why are our forces taking 9 hours to react to the scene? It is what I want policymakers to look, because there are many things that will determine how fast a force will react. There is equipment, mobility equipment, there is even the number. If you have numbers of troops stationed near to the hot zones, of course it takes them a shorter time to reach. But if they are far off, of course it will take a longer time. If they have mobility assets that are commensurate with the terrain, different terrains we have all over the country. Nigeria is a big country. Our military, our police, they have to have the appropriate assets. Because you could have a vehicle, but it's not every vehicle that will follow any kind of terrain. So why should we be having 9 hours? If you ask me in all honesty, I do not hear these questions being asked. First, from the executive arm. Second, from the legislature. Definite silence. And then an honest conversation with the military and police hierarchy. Do we have the military? Do we have the police we need vis-a-vis our security challenges? In all honesty, I will answer in the negative that the answer is no. We really don't have. So we should start. That is the point to start. To be fair to the military by nature of its it has a tradition of keeping silent. I think this is unique to Nigerian military tradition. When I say unique to military tradition, in other climes, a service chief or a police chief will face either the executive or the legislature and tell them, for me to do this and this task you tell me to do, I need this number of men, I need this number of vehicles, I need this number of armament. He will state it. In all honesty, you can never hear that in Nigeria. And I think that is where we are shooting in the dark. It is my humble opinion that we really don't have the troops, we really don't have the police, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the training, they don't have the logistics to tackle all these problems. This is why I come to the point where people say change leadership. Yes, for moral purpose, for career progression, it's good to change leadership. But my honest opinion is that even if you bring General Patton to Nigeria now, with the gaps that our security has, there's very little he can do. You have to address, you have to address these gaping holes that we have in equipment, in manpower. I am happy. The last statement I saw after the National Security Advisor, addressed the press, I had him saying something like, we don't have equipment, or we're looking into equipment and personnel issues. This is probably the first time, as somebody who's an observer, that you'll hear somebody high up there, first even accepting that we don't have enough equipment or we don't have enough personnel. These are issues that we must look into if we want to progress. Either it is against the Boko Haram or it is against the bandits. If not, we'll be running in circles. Today we win, tomorrow we lose. Today we win, and then in the long run, over the 10 years, probably looking backwards, if we had a well-equipped, well-resourced military and police, maybe probably we could have finished the war in 3 years instead of the 10 years plus now that we are going. That is my opinion.
Well, Group Captain, you've painted a picture of utter helplessness because the average Nigerian wants the situation, the security situation in the country to improve. And if you say leadership is part of the problem, and as we speak, the president has only read the Riot Act to the service chiefs, but they're still there. And there is no guarantee how soon he will relieve them of their positions. Now, what kind of situation in the short time would you like to see in terms of what should be the response at the level of leadership?
The response of the leaders, both the executive branch. Here, when I say the executive branch, as far as security is concerned, because it is an exclusive reserve list, you are taking of the president and commander-in-chief, and then below him, the minister of defense. If you are talking of other internal security matters, you are talking about either the minister of interior, who is in charge of the police. Okay, you have a ministry of police. You have the minister of police, and maybe interior, and the IGP. This is on the side of the leaders of the executive branch. Then in the legislature, would they have a very big role to play because they appropriate. After appropriating, they also follow the money to see what we appropriated. Was it bought? Because in all honesty, people are quick to point that we spend a lot of money on defense. Yes, vis-a-vis other sectors, we do spend a lot of money on defense. But there is a difference between spending big and spending wise. If you don't put the money where operational efficiency will be increased, you can throw the whole money in this world, you are not likely to get a result. This is why I find a gap in oversight. Our legislators must take oversight with our security challenges as a full-time job, as a specialist job, as a job. When they say you are oversighting the military or the police, you should take time to read or have people to read for you and reduce the issues. With all due respect, all our legislators that were either on defense or army or air force committee, if you ask any of them, first of all, how many officers are men in these armed forces? Unfortunately, you find they don't know. How many armored personnel carrier does the Nigerian army have before, as of now? They don't know. How many aircraft does the Air Force have? They don't know. How many ships does the Navy have? They don't know. How many transport vehicles does the police have? They don't know. So if you say you're oversighting and you don't know what the gaps are, you need to know what they have, what they need, and what the gap are, so that you have either it is a yearly plan. The gap is very big. It's not something that is likely to be filled because honestly, these gaps, when we check back, it started building right from the return of democracy. It started with the Babangida regime, trying for regime protection, reduce the power and the armament of the armed forces. From then, no visible. In all honesty, after Shagari regime, that was the last time that massive equipment purchase was done for the armed forces. Till today, we do it in bits and pieces, and it's like throwing it's like a drop in the ocean. So we need to have that. We need to have, legislators who really know what it means. If you don't know what are the needs of the armed forces, then for God's sake, what are you oversighting? And also, one other area I see, like I said, spending big and spending wise. If you just appropriate money, and you don't know what is the particular aircraft that the Air Force is supposed to buy to secure our challenges, and you allow the Air Force, here I'm just speculating, to buy anything they want, you are going to waste the money. If you don't know what kind of particular equipment the Army is going to buy, you just give Army the money, there's tendency for that money to be wasted. So you really need to know, it's not only appropriating, you have to find out that the money is put where it belongs. This is what I do not see happening either at the level of the ministry. For the Ministry of Defense, again, there is tendency sometimes to go and buy equipment that is not what the end user needs. It is the services that will determine this is what we need. All the Ministry of Defense will do is to ensure that they follow procedure as per the Procurement Act and ensure finally what the Army, what the Navy, what the Air Force say, or what the police say, or if it's police affairs, what they say they want is gotten within, in an efficient manner that Nigeria's money is not wasted. It should not be somebody who is not within the services that will decide, I want to buy equipment X, because the end user must be consulted. These are issues we really have to look about.
Thank you so much for that. Against that backdrop of the rot in the military and inefficiencies, let me talk to you about specifics. there was a report, tragic report, that 10 soldiers were killed in Damboa in Borno State. They were reportedly escorting some travelers. And that reminded me of the previous tragedy involving travelers in Auno, where 30 travelers were set upon and murdered. And at the time, it was said that there was no military presence around because the closest barracks had locked their gates. This is why they were sitting ducks. So you can see that the Nigerian military is trying to be proactive and change their strategy. Then in Auno, there was no military presence. Now we have soldiers escorting travelers, and still they were ambushed, and still they were bested. What should be done about strategy?
Well, strategy, when you talk of strategy, again, strategy will give you, what you need in terms of resources. Resources, could they be human? Could they be equipment? One issue that experts not only may have been hammering, and now we've even hearing from people like the NSE, is the honest truth is that we do not have enough troops on the ground in the Northeast. Experts have studied counterinsurgencies all over the world, about 40 counterinsurgencies all over the world. There are experts that studied them, with a view to saying, if you have an insurgency in an area X, what is the minimum number of troops that you need to have a chance of succeeding? This is what is called troop density. Troop density that is recommended by experts after studying all insurgencies is that you need at least 25 troops per 1,000 local communities. Because in counterinsurgency, what is success? Success is when the farmers, the fishermen, the traders have enough confidence to remain where they are and stop running like IDPs. That is when you have success in counterinsurgency. And you cannot have that unless you saturate that area with troops that will not only chase Boko Haram out, but remain and occupy that ground so that Boko Haram does not come out. If you check, if you do an internet search, if you mention towns like Monguno, if you mention, there are specific towns that if you check, you will see battles have been fought on those areas more than 5 or 7 times. That means Boko Haram will attack the place, the military will chase them, they will leave, then the military will also leave, then they will come back. So you see, that is a wastage of time and resources. But if you had stayed and held the ground, probably they will not come back. The local communities will stay, and then they will continue their normal lifestyle. And that is only then that you can say you have succeeded in a counterinsurgency. It's the same thing with the bandits operation. We see bandits attacking in Katsina. Katsina was the first hotspot recently. The president gave an order, move to Katsina. As soon as they moved to Katsina, these bandits moved through the forest and moved to Sokoto and Zamfara states. You will still move the same troops because you don't have enough number to remain in Katsina. Probably even the troops sent to Katsina were mopped up from other places, leaving gaps to move to Katsina. The bandits move from Katsina to Zamfara or Sokoto, and then you move. Then they will come back to Katsina, as we are seeing now. So in all honesty, any strategy you talk about, we still have to address these basic things. We do not have enough troops. We do not have enough police. They do not have enough equipment. They do not have enough logistics. I want to see a conversation between the executive branch, the legislative branch, and then the security, whether military, whether police, top brass, saying what is it that you need to provide success for us. If we don't do that, in all honesty, we'll be running in circles. And I want to see the military top brass talking honestly to the politicians. This is the minimum I need. This is what happens in other countries. When America was going to Afghanistan, the chief of army staff went to Congress. How many troops that you need? He said, this is the number of troops that I need if you want me to assure you of success. They didn't give him the troops. The man resigned and left. This is the kind, if you want progress, that's how we have to go. It happened in 2015 when the French prime minister came. He said he wanted to cut down the budget of the armed forces, but he wants the armed forces to continue doing all the other tasks they are doing. The chief of defense staff equivalent met him and said, look, if you cut this budget, I cannot assure you of success unless if you are also going to cut the missions we are going to do. The prime minister didn't agree. The chief of service staff left. He is a hero now. This is what I want to see, honest. The military should not be, with due respect, I think, like I said, it's a military tradition within Nigeria. Right from our days in NDA, There's what we call Doba. Doba is supposed to be for the commander to come and sit down. Everybody from the most junior and the most senior is supposed to be a frank discussion. Tell me what is wrong in this battalion. But right from NDA, what we teach our officers is that before the Oga arrives, the most senior man will stomp up. He will say, okay, Oga is coming. If he comes, if anybody opens his mouth, bam, you are in trouble. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want pocket lawyers. Unfortunately, it is this tradition that I'm seeing that we carry into the officers' corps. The officer becomes a staff officer. He cannot face his boss and tell him, sir, this is wrong based on my estimate. He cannot, because the Oga doesn't want to hear this thing. It's the same thing. If that officer becomes a service chief, he cannot face the president or face the legislatures or face the minister of defense and say, look, if I don't have X number of troops and X number of equipment, in all honesty, this task you are saying, it is not going to succeed. We need to have that honest discussion.
Okay. And that's why we're here. We're here to have that frank and honest discussion. General George Patton, that you respect so much, said something. He said, if everybody are thinking alike, maybe somebody is not thinking. Is that the case with us now? You've enumerated all the problems.
So, sorry, please, I didn't get you. I didn't get you.
General Patton, that you respect so much, that you cited that even if General Patton comes, the war can be over, said something. He said, if everybody is thinking alike, maybe someone is not thinking. Definitely. So, with all of this you have said, because I just want solutions. I want life to return to the Northeast and other parts of the North. So, is there another thought process we should embrace, apart from what you've said? Because all these things you've said, we know them on ground. Only last week, we took a story of a Lance Corporal coming out to say these things. So if you say that people that are trained in the NDA do not come out to say this, a Lance Corporal said it, Major General Adeni, correct me if I'm wrong, said it even at the battlefront. We saw the equipment. So we have heard this refrain over and over and over again. We know these things you've said. Group Captain, we know these things you've said. But what is the new thinking?
Yes. You are citing the video that's trending of a Lance Corporal or a corporal that said some things.
Yes.
How authentic the video, I don't know, but I've been following up the distance. You've also been talking of the second but last theater commander in the Northeast. However, what I am saying, in a military, in a professional military, there are ways that commanders will pass their concerns to the commander-in-chief. There is a way that a company commander can complain of his lacks to the battalion commander. There is a way the battalion commander will in turn talk to the brigade commander to the div commander, and the service chief. There are ways of doing this. The military tradition has all this factored out. But like I said, when the commander, when the service chief gets this thing, he in turn is supposed to go and eyeball the political masters and tell them, my troops are hurting in this area. My troops are hurting in logistics. My troops are hurting in armaments. And if you continue to tell us that we have to get success, you must, at a minimum, no military, let me say, no military gets all that at once. But there is a basic minimum, which a service chief will say, if I don't get this, then honest, it is a mission impossible.
Group Captain, sorry to cut you. Sorry for the rude interruption.
You talked of AUNO.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for the rude interruption. Yes. But we have seen monies being spent on the military that have been converted to build big homes in Victoria Island, Lagos. In fact, I was neighbors to one of the homes military armament money was used to build on Victoria Island. That was in the newspapers. So we've seen this. So these requests are not meeting our requests. The monies might have been disbursed in the past, but we have not seen what have been done with them. So that's why I keep insisting. We know these things you're talking about, but I want something out of the box. Tell me something I don't know.
Yes, talking out of the box. If you remember, when we started this conversation today, I talked about weakness in oversight. I talked about a difference between spending big and spending smart. Who ensures that money appropriated for that house that was built in Ikoyi? Who ensures that that money, I'm sure in the budget it wasn't put that house is going to be built in Ikoyi. Who followed the money to see that the money that was appropriated was not diverted to do something? It is the work of the legislatures. It means they didn't do their work. You give the money, you follow the money. That is what I mean. In all honesty, I see a huge weakness from our legislative oversight. There is this erroneous impression, maybe probably because of our our military rule background. Maybe probably because the current service chief is also a former military general. There is this erroneous impression, it is not said, but it is there, that the National Assembly members, they believe everything to do with security is completely not their business. But that is not so. Constitutionally, it is not so. Any kobo that will be spent anywhere, it didn't make any exception to military issues. The legislature must have a say. They appropriate the money. That's why they have all these big committees. The committees are supposed to follow. If you say you are going to buy equipment X, how good is that equipment X? Where are you going to put it? From where are you going to buy it? Have you bought it? They are supposed to be follow-up. So I am happy you just came back to what I said. If you don't do that, even if you carry the whole national budget and put it in security, if there is no follow-up to see where the money is, the money will disappear and the operational capacity of our armed forces, of our police will not improve.
Well,
you have to follow the money.
Group captain.
So if you are talking on that one, and it is not the military. The military have their own internal organs. They have inspector generals. They have project monitoring implementation. Almost all the services have that, but that's an internal mechanism. The legislature, the executive branch, independent. They should have an independent way of monitoring. But again, it is knowledge-driven. If you are a legislator and you don't know the difference between an armored personnel carrier and a tank, and the army comes and tell you we are going to buy armored personnel carrier, if they go and buy a vehicle which is not armored personnel carrier, you may not even know. You will just go and examine the battalion, snap picture with the battalion commander, and then you come back. But there was no work done. I'm always, maybe I'm being over ambitious. But in all honesty, we say we are copying the American system. With all, it's not a perfect system, but that is what we are doing. If you see a legislator in America calling a service chief and asking him questions about technical questions, even the service chief will know that, look, when next time I go to that Congress, I must be sure I have my facts right. Because that legislator is going to be asking you pinpoint questions.
Group captain.
You will know that you cannot just dribble him.
Group
with
captain.
With all due respect now, the capacity of our legislators now to hold the military and police accountable is very, very weak. Almost
Group captain, well, that point is very clear. But you've been talking about the number of troops. What exactly is the size of the Nigerian military? And where is the matter of welfare and morale? Where do those two issues fit into all that you've been saying? Because oftentimes we hear that the Boko Haram is better equipped and better motivated.
Thank you very much. Let's track with your first part of your question, the size of the Nigerian military. The question is, I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows specifically to say. Not only because I'm not in government, even the people in government who are supposed to do oversight, I can assure you they don't have specific number of the Nigerian military. So you can see, if you are budgeting for an institution whose number you cannot see, without being indiscreet, I have evidence that people who are supposed to be oversighting the military, they don't know how many we have. So you can see where our first problem starts. Because if you don't know how many we have, how can you work from what we have and what we need and arrive at a gap?
No, but Aliu Ndume gave a figure of
157,000.
I remember, because Aliu Ndume heads, in the Senate, that, the military committee, he gave a figure of 157,000. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was in the papers. So when you say you don't know the size of the military...
7,000?
157,000. That's what I heard. Aliu Ndume.
Are you saying...
157,000.
57,000.
157,000 troops.
57.
No,
167,000.
57,000 troop strength. That's what Aliu Ndume said.
Well, in all honesty, I will not. Senator Aliu Ndume is the chairman of the Army Committee in the Senate, and he is very proactive in such matters. I do not know whether Aliu Ndume has been able to cite the nominal role, and I don't know whether he's talking of the whole armed forces or he's talking of the army. But I agree, okay, I take the figures of 167 that Aliu Ndume said. But when you check, you'll find figures of 200,000, you'll find figures of 250,000. It is just like the Nigerian population. All we can say is about. And in all honesty, how do you plan? How do you plan when you don't know the number? With due respect, you can call any legislator who is in the oversight house and ask him whether he knows the number of the armed forces. So that's why I said I cannot know, because in my research I see many numbers, and I do not have the nominal role of the military to tell you this is what it is. So this is, again, a point of our problem. I expect the number, unfortunately, now if I want to know the number of American armed forces, with only a click of...
Well, Group Captain, thank you very much. That's all we'll be able to take in this segment of the morning show today.